Hello.
Amanda Levie.
Levie, yes.
Levie. You forgot a Y in there. That's how I didn't know that. This is Jay Michaels. If I'm on the line, you're on the air.
Yay.
Congratulations to you. You're packing your bags. You're on your way to Los Angeles to present your company. And now your show and your company is bicoastal. You will have done it in the East and the West. This is wonderful. Congratulations. Tell our listeners all about it. Firstly, it's a great title. Like, always gives me a laugh.
Sure. So do you want me to talk about the company or you want me to talk about the show?
Let's start with the show because that's where you're going to present very soon. Correct.
Okay, so the show that's actually coming up next week is called The Shit Show, An American Allegory. It is written by Leelee Jackson. She is a playwright that's known for writing just an amazing series of monologues called Comb Your Hair or You'll Look Like a Slave. And this is one of her newer works out of 3 that she has in development right now.
Oh, that's great.
The Shit Show is an all black cast that actually has white face makeup on. And
oh my God, do you really? Some people are doing it in whiteface?
Yes. I mean,
wow.
That's not really going to come across exactly in our production, but that is what the stage directions originally called for. So it is an all-black cast that is in a show within a show. So An American Allegory was originally titled The Shit Show, a reverse minstrelsy, and the structure of the show was actually done in the form and structure of early minstrel shows.
Wow.
So there is 2 stories going on. There are small little bottle episodes. Each scene has its own sort of message, but then there's also a linear story about an extraterrestrial family who is occupying white American bodies, and they are trying to assimilate to being good humans. But they're having trouble navigating American values, one of them being racism. And that the plot sort of thickens when they realize that they have a very interesting turn of events or interesting turn of relationship when they meet the black family across the street. So that's essentially what it's about.
Oh my
Does that make sense?
Yes, completely. And that somewhat justifies the whiteface. For a brief moment, I'm thinking, oh, minstrel show, doesn't sound very PC. But then, of course, now it's a stroke of inspiration. Of course, they're alien creatures. They're disguised.
Yes.
So that's great.
They are occupying white bodies, but we didn't want to create. Nobody wants to create a production specifically speaking to black audiences, representing black audiences, but with all white bodies. So that's not necessarily the kind of show that we're doing.
Right.
And it was very important to Leelee Jackson that the cast was all black and was reflecting the values and the audience in which she's speaking to.
You're making a very powerful comment there as well, and I think that's really brilliant that of course if someone's going to come down here, they sort of knee-jerk to, okay, I guess I have to be white. So you're making a very powerful statement with that. Oh my gosh. That's really, really clever. Now that's the least clever within your production, because you've told me the production scheme of No Peeking Theater, and I have never heard of that in my life. It's like you have truly rediscovered a new kind of theatrical form of art. Tell us about your production scheme.
Okay, so No Peeking Theater was founded in 2012. I founded it as my thesis in about 2010 and 2011 for my undergraduate degree at Kane University. I basically created a type of theater that is experienced in all ways except through sight. So instead of seeing the play, you smell the play, you taste the play, you feel the play touches you, you hear the play, you smell it, everything except for seeing the play.
Oh my gosh.
This structure actually gave us the opportunity to get rid of some of the obstacles that have systematically marginalized people and individuals of color. And pretty much any other marginalized group. If you don't look the part, if you're not, the body type of this, or if you sound like the ingenue, or you sing like the ingenue, but you don't look like the ingenue, it also gave us the chance to become more prolific, because the turnaround time for these kinds of plays is about 3 to 6 months.
Sure.
And then on top of that, the main, I guess the core belief that inspired this entire thing was accessibility in a physical way. So we choose our venues by making sure that they're accessible to everybody, both socioeconomically, we have low ticket prices, and physically, we usually do on the first floor. We have floor seating, which is on the same plane as the actors and the world and the set of the play. We immerse everybody in a way that you do not need to see what's going on, and also the actors and the production crew do not need to have the exact same credentials or look the part or have what would be considered the wrong first impression for theater.
So walk me through this. An audience member walks into a really comfortable, really accessible location. No one has to worry about the stairs. No one. I had a client once who had a terrible review because their show was on a 5th floor walk up, and by the time the reviewer got there, he was just furious. So they walk in comfortable, accessible, easy, and all of that. They sit down, and then what happens?
So once they sit down, they actually, when they enter the room, there is a touch exhibit. So they are able to explore tactile objects that are related to the play either thematically or cited quite literally. So for instance, if the show was about a baseball game, there might be a baseball or a bat on the table. However, there's also thematic things. So if we're talking about oppression or police brutality or something like that, we might not reference handcuffs, but there will be handcuffs on the table. So there's that exhibit that lasts about 10 minutes for all audience members to explore. Then they choose their seat to their liking. There is no good seat or bad seat. There's no nosebleeds. There's no, special row. So everybody experiences the exact same thing throughout the play. And then they sit down, and then they are given a pre-show announcement, which is, this is where the exits are. And then they're instructed to put on sleep masks that serve as blindfolds. So they experience the play without the use of sight, with the sleep mask on, and then there is an intermission. And during that intermission, or during the play, by intermission, the exhibit has changed again. So it's a different series of objects to explore and attach to certain parts of the story. During the course of the play, they'll smell things. There will be stagehands that either touch them or brush them or distribute sensory items like smells, like food, like objects, like changing the temperature, like making it more humid or dry or cool or warm. These things all happen throughout the course of the play.
Wow. So I walk into a theater, I put on a sleep mask, and that again, not a blindfold, a sleep mask. You're so nice to your audience. They put on this mask, and then literally they step into the world of the play. They've had a chance to see items, so they've planted them in their memory. And then, now if there's a wind, like a fan is blown on them or something like that.
Yes.
If they're in a kitchen, suddenly food smells, or they'll hear pots and pans or something.
Correct. Yep.
Oh my
If it's raining,
gosh.
they get rained on. If it's windy, they feel the breeze. If they're at the beach, they smell, they feel sand. They smell salt air. There's seagulls. There's a lot.
It's rather ironic. In the days of Shakespeare, they never said, "I'm going to see a play." They said, "I'm going to hear a play." Because,
oh, really?
Yes, back then they were very declamatory, just to make sure the entire audience in their nosebleed seats could be heard. The actors could be heard, that it became accustomed to say, "I'm going to hear a play." So you're going way back in your thoughts on this. But I have heard people give me ideas after ideas after ideas of theater, and I think they're all brilliant. But in the back of my head, I may go, "Oh, I remember that from this," or "That sounds like this." I have never heard of this in my life. Where did you come up with this idea?
Well, I was actually in Kane University, and I had to create my thesis for my undergraduate degree. And when I was actually rejected from my directing, the class that I wanted to take, directing, for about 3 years in a row. And then so I was actually placed in theater administration. I think at the time I was just trying to dive headfirst into administration and figure out what the heck I could gain out of that. But I'd be kidding myself if I wasn't going to admit that I was a little bit bitter about it, a little bit upset, a little bit closed off from opportunities that I thought many of the other kids in my department had gotten.
Right.
So at the time I was feeling slighted. At the time I was feeling boxed off from an opportunity that I was more than equipped and ready and qualified to do. And at the same time I was going through, I was actually majoring in lighting design specifically. And I had decided when I started discovering ADA regulations and about how theater was complying with those, I thought, well, this is not good enough. This is garbage. Throwing money at a problem, especially about access, is always inherently a bad idea in my mind historically. But it seems that theater was like, we don't see what the problem is. And I was like, the problem is, and then I realized that, everybody was trying to change the world of theater or contributing to the world of theater. And I decided that I wasn't included in that world. And that had been clear to me during, getting my degree, that entire journey. But it had also been clear to me in the historical context of it. And it also became clear to me when I was auditioning and going to look at other things and submitting my resume for production gigs. And I realized that I was going to have to make my own opportunity, and I was going to have to make an opportunity for other people that felt the same way that I did.
That is really and then you came up with this idea of wiping off any preconceived notions and just giving people the theater of their mind, if you will.
Correct. I mean, we're always told when we're in there, it's not, it's a little bit of who you know, but it's really what you know. And it did not feel like anybody was looking at me for what I knew. I think they were looking at me for what I represented or what I looked like rather than what I knew. And that's not how you hope that that's not how it's supposed to go. But that's not necessarily true. And a lot of us, I think, feel that we understand what that industry works like now. But nobody was changing it. I needed to change it. I needed to figure out how we were going to tell stories. On top of that, we're always told, especially students in theater, we're always told that theater is a dying art and we can't figure out for the life of us why. And part of that has to do with pandering to producers in a certain light, and what those producers are, what demographic those producers are, and those funders and donors. But on top of that, it had to do with the fact that we were recycling the same stories over and over again. And what better way to find an entire new world of stories than to look at my background, my friend's background, my neighborhood's background, my town's background, everybody that is coming from a different place other than a predominantly white network that tends to be really homogenous and
So you quite brilliantly you've somewhat summed up the parable of the plight of the American theater in one passage. So you basically have wiped out the preconceived notion. When we go to a casting call, a producer will look at us and say, "I'm sorry, you're too tall, you're too short. We need someone Caucasian, we need someone African American." We are typed out before any of the talent or training that we have is delivered. And you have wiped that out. Yeah, really. Yeah. If you don't mind standing on the line until you're dead. But you have wiped out all of the obstacles right there. If someone is short, is heavy, is no other way to put it, the wrong ethnicity for the part or something, you have wiped that out.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about new works, but now we can take old works as well. We could take plays that are done over and over again, and now someone who would never be Willy Loman in Death of a Salesman could very well be, because it's now the audience is forming it in their heads.
Yes.
You're also handing like a whole educational system to the audience. It's somewhat exercised, because I'm a TV holic, so we could sit and zone out in front of the television for hours. But you're not letting your audience even zone out. If they daydream, they're walking off the theater. They need to be right there in their brains.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're offering this great challenge to the audience as well as to your actors.
Yes, it's definitely it's definitely a challenge for the audience, because they do need to stay engaged, and we try to keep it. We try to help with some of those items. One of the things that we realized in developmental readings was the fact that people were like, I'm starting from a blank slate, and it is exercising my mind a lot just to create these scenes or these characters in my head. So that's actually why we decided to add touch exhibits. We also add to the ambiance and the atmosphere for pre-show, before anybody sits down. They're in the world of the play. They're hearing the world of the play. They are absorbing these things subliminally that are thematic and staples to the show, without even really knowing. They just think, oh, this is nifty, but really they're absorbing that stuff when they don't even know that they're doing it.
Right, right.
So we try to accommodate that in a lot of ways, to where they can just focus on really hanging on to the performance and what's going on in the present, rather than, oh, what am I supposed to do? Oh, wait, how does this person? Oh, wait, who is this person? Because it can be disorienting.
Of course. Well, because in a regular play, we're essentially throwing something at the audience, and they need to follow our lead. Yeah. What you're doing here is basically, I laugh. If you have 100 people in the house, you have 100 individual plays going on, because it is the play of the mind.
Yeah.
So as someone is blowing wind at me during a windy scene, I'm thinking one thing. The person next to me is thinking something different. The person next to them is thinking something different. We have 100 plays going on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the educational value of that, because then when people then inherently go out to a restaurant or something afterwards to talk about the play, each one of them is talking about the same play but a different play at the same time.
Yes, they are. That's my favorite.
Wow.
We usually have talkbacks afterwards, and people are like, well, this is what I got out of it. And somebody will say, yeah, I got that, but I also got this. It's very interesting, because people will always have that, no matter whether they're fed the image of a live performance or the images of live performances. But this goes into a completely different direction, especially after they meet the cast. Most of the time they're like, I would have never guessed that. And it's like, I was going to say, but you think it's interesting. Yeah.
Do you have audience gasping, saying, what? You were the wife? No! How could that be? And then suddenly shocked. Oh, yeah. I could see arguments erupting. Well, when the tall alien said, which tall alien? The first one. He wasn't tall, he was short. No, he was tall. I could see arguments. Wow. So you're handing the audience an entire universe. You have managed to handle. I'm really appreciative of the fact that, okay, your degree pushed you in one direction. In a way, it's almost a parable of this. They've decided to typecast you in one place, without thinking of the knowledge you have, and you came across breaking that with utter brilliance. Oh, good. You should send a letter to the school saying, see, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, Joyous, you did it in New York. How did it go in New York?
We did it in Jersey City, and we did it in New York. So we did our first reading in Jersey City in a dance studio, and then the second one we did at the Tank Theater in Midtown.
Right.
And we had two separate casts for both of those readings, and they went wonderfully. Everybody that gets involved with this has a passion and a commitment to it. And on top of that, they are challenged, but because this is such a different type of theater, people are really stepping up, actors and designers and production crew members are really stepping up to the plate to be like, this is completely different. This is something that they're dedicated to, and it's something that is sort of opening their world up to the idea that the structure that we live in right now for theater and for live performance is not where we have to be. There are plenty of other outlets to do this, and there are plenty of opportunities to create in this, in this way.
Oh, completely. You're giving your actors a challenge there in terms of their performances. They have to hone their voices. They have to hone timing in terms of delivering the physical aspect of it. Really immense. And you're giving like a whole new world of independent theater. You're giving a whole new type of theater that can be done.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so it went well at the Tank. It went well in Jersey, and so now you're going to see the playwright. You're doing the show in the playwright's backyard, just about.
Yes,
Oh, that's great. And that's July 13th. So what how has it been to move the entire production across the coast?
Difficult. It is difficult, and it is expensive. So this is one of our most ambitious goals, was to try to bring it across country. I decided to bring it across country by the end of this year. Last year, decided around August, I believe. I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna go. Market, and for me, I dedicated to putting my first production, the first festival that I had. This needs a bigger footprint. We need more exposure to, bring this to other places, because we've been doing this the whole time in Jersey City and New York and central New Jersey. And I just decided we need to go to another place. And it just so happened that Leelee Jackson was from Los Angeles and had submitted this play in October. So a couple months after I had made this goal and this decision, she just magically appeared and happened to be in Los Angeles. So I was like, that's where we're going.
Is this going to be a common thing now? You're going to do a show here, and then you're going to try to tour it, if you will?
Yes, I think that we're going to try to do at least one show out of state per year.
That's great.
In general, our average season is about 3 to 4 shows a year. It's been like that for about 2 years now. And we're going to try to do at least one of the shows that is produced, one of the original works out of state, like well out of state, outside of New Jersey and outside of New York. And hopefully we can accommodate by bringing it to different playwrights across the country.
That's great.
We'll see if funding allows for that, yeah.
So that's even sort of like part of the production scheme here. We're now going to take it to basically to the home of the playwright.
Yeah.
So they could see yet another level of their own work.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to get international if you do a show from someone in Russia or Israel or something? The what?
I would love to. Yeah, I think right now, I believe that all of our crew members, our production team, and our directors do have passports. So I would love to go. I mean, it would be wonderful to bring it to Mexico specifically, but I'm down to go anywhere, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's marvelous. So you're giving us this brand new experience. You're taking it right. Again, it's almost subliminally within your production scheme. You're providing a comfortable theater. So it's like you're providing a comfortable theater wherever you're putting it. You are bringing the entire show to someone's home, if you will.
Correct.
You also, let's talk business for a moment. You don't need to rent a theater to do your works necessarily.
No, actually, our best, it's been a challenge, but it's also been really exciting because we're changing the way space is looked for theater. So in general, theaters, because they have seating and it's separated by a proscenium and a stage, that's not what we're after. So
right.
In many cases, what we decide that we want is something more along the lines of a big room, not a big room, but a medium-sized room that can hold at least, about 50 people max. And is easily malleable. The temperature is easy to change, that it has good ventilation, that it's relatively quiet. So one of the things that has to us as an ideal space are dance studios in a lot of ways.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but also small film studios. I've done no peeking shows in just vacant storefronts that haven't been rented out yet by some real estate friends that have just hooked me up with an empty room that has electric. It's pretty much able to be anywhere that we can actually manipulate the environment and is ADA accessible. That's pretty much it.
That is absolute. That is brilliance. Forget about the artistic part of it. That is absolutely so clever. You reminded me a million years ago when I was producing works. I had a friend who was a realtor, and whenever there was a vacant apartment, that became our rehearsal studio for the day. So you reminded me of that. But you're essentially now saying, okay, the oppressive costs to get a theater are not necessary. That it could be in any room, anywhere. You could bring it to people's homes. If you get someone with an expansive home or a very large room or even a large basement, it can erupt right there. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You're essentially rewriting history again. There used to be in the age of eloquence, as it was called, or this was a time when they would have salons where people would come to people's homes on a Friday and they would hear someone play the piano or maybe read, an author might read a passage from his book in someone's, salon or den, if you will. And so you're essentially doing this. You're saying we are going to allow you to hear a play at your most convenient moment. You're essentially making it so accessible to the audience. I think that's great. Okay, so you're going to California. You're going to do this. It's going to get standing ovations. Well, hopefully they'll stand up. They might be afraid to move because they don't know who's around them. And then where are you going? What are you doing?
After that, we are packing up immediately and going back to I'm going back to New Jersey, and we are working on several other scripts that are in development. This was the first year that we took people's pitches and treatments and decided, okay, well, yeah, we'll definitely, we want to produce it. We want you to develop it. So I'm constantly back and forth with a few playwrights right now, but I'm hoping that our next show will specifically be about the history of Planned Parenthood. Carla Bell is an amazing playwright in the Pacific Northwest. Hopefully we can bring that to Seattle. I believe she might be in Seattle or Olympia. I can't remember. She's recently moved. But she is actually writing, relating her own experience to the historical, valleys and peaks of values that Planned Parenthood was really based on. And she is a Black woman that decided at one point when she was pregnant that she was going to continue her pregnancy and has a wonderful son. But she was informed by a lot of things. I think her experience is giving us a wide range of understanding about what access looks like, what equity looks like when it comes to reproductive rights.
Sure.
What are the values that are behind it, and what are the values that are fueled behind these anti-abortion or these pro-life rallies, protests, legislation, all of it. It's giving a wide gamut of what women of color experience every day as far as what they're trying to navigate, because it is a very hard system to navigate and understand, in addition to access. So
nowadays it's almost surreal in terms of the rights, in terms of pregnancy is almost surreal. You've picked two very hot button topics. Number one, it's your sci-fi parable of immigration, and now we're going straight into the part one of Handmaid's Tale in terms of reproductive rights.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm giggling to myself because I'm imagining your production scheme for something like that. I could see two actors on either side of an audience going, okay, help me change the baby. I can only imagine what that's going to be. This has been phenomenal. Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to hear how it turns out. Please send me pictures. Please send me everything. I must spread the word on everyone on how it's doing in California. Also, you're still accepting donations, yes?
Yes. So we accept donations year-round on our No Peeking store, which can be accessed through our No Peeking website, or you can look up No Peeking Theater Square. At the very bottom of the screen, if you scroll all the way down, you can donate as much as you want, as little as you want.
There you go.
So we take donations all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure that the link is accessible to our audience who hears this.
Tax deductible. I'm sorry.
Of course it is. You're not for profit. Hello.
Yes. Right now we're in the transition of getting our own 501c3. So we ourselves are a nonprofit. But right now we are partnered with Fractured Atlas.
Right.
So they are lending their 501c3 status to us in order to accept donations that are fully tax deductible to the full extent of the law.
Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Amanda, thank you so much. This has been enlightening. I'm thrilled to hear what's happening with the project. I will make sure all our listeners know exactly how to donate and how to follow the great work of No Peeking Theater. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Yes, thank you, Jay.
My pleasure. I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Ciao.